Hey, don't be judgmental, Hanto. He could just have a glandular problem. We open this episode, wholesomely enough, with Shoma and Sachika handing out candy to the little trick-or-treaters, which gave our main hero, whose actor, by the way, is 19, an idea.
Trick or treat.
Aren't you a little old to be trick-or-treating?
But yeah, while Shoma's antics were a little irksome, especially in a country where trick-or-treating is relatively still a little uncommon, it was at least a little less squicky than Hanto's stuff as he watched a couple of little girls dance. Oh, come on! I want to do that joke! Okay, but seriously, I'm actually pleasantly surprised that Toei, of all companies, made this joke in their show, and even kind of seriously addressed the issue, if a little indirectly. Anyway, before Hanto's intervening, the two girls were talking about cases of missing children, hence why they were a little on edge. Our secondary writer correctly figured out this is connected to the Grand Newts, who of course would also abduct children, but again points to this show for not putting any budgets on darker subject matter like this. Though speaking of kids, the brats of the Stolmach family were being given the typical final villain challenge and were going to be supported by their mad scientist brother. Gonna make some heroes, or rather villains in a half shell with that stuff. Anyway, Shoma ended up running into one of the girls who Hanto tried to question and offered her candy because this episode is really going in on that theme. Though for some reason, she seemed to have a unique aversion to sweets, much to Shoma's shock. Hanto almost caught up with the girl, but was distracted by Shoma and the baker handing out mandolins. He did eventually catch up with her and even saved her from a car. Wrong show, dude. Also, I guess Truck-kun decided to understandably retire after the first episode. But yeah, Hanto finally got it into his thick skull that maybe he should have been more sensitive to the fact that he was an older gentleman pursuing a little girl, even if he was trying to get intel about an alien invasion, which is perfectly reasonable, but still. Regardless, she did finally talk to him about the disappearances. They specifically seem to be happening at a tunnel that you'd think the cops would investigate a little more, but that's your tax dollars at work, people. With that, Hanto knew his next point of investigation, but while talking to the kid named Kiari, he kind of befriended her when both realized that they had goals that they were working hard towards. One was trying to become an idol, and the other was trying to exterminate a whole alien race, which, yeah, close enough, at least in terms of damage they could cause. And after learning that one of the missing kids went to her dance class, he decided to sit in on it, hopefully to get some more leads. And sure enough, he seemed to find a potential Grand Newt in the instructor based on his tummy because... he's fat! Well, okay, there was a bit of an unusual shaped bulge, but honestly, I could almost immediately tell this dude was a red herring. Hell, he was even wearing red. However, after the class, Kiari seemed to be down, so Hanto, in a really sweet moment, ignored his suspect and decided to consult her a little. Not too surprisingly, she had some serious self-confidence issues, to the point that she didn't even feel like she had earned the same treats as her classmates, as visually shown to us, and not even talked about with Hanto, so yeah, I really liked that, along with this line. Yeah, I got nothing. I just really wanted to show that clip because that was a good quote. With that, Kiai invited him to watch her new dance steps in the park the next day. It worked out for him, as he was planning to catch his suspect that day. And with seeming approval, she finally felt like she could accept a treat that she had gotten from her friend. Again, great visual storytelling right here. Meanwhile, Shoma was enjoying the spoils of his trick-or-treating. I know, right? This thing is taking way more than 3 licks to get to the Tootsie Roll Center. Of course, this led to the creation of some new gochuzos that would be very conveniently useful in this very episode, because toy commercial and everything, but still, they had some interesting details, like the fact that they were heavy as all hell, hinting at what we were going to get as one of the agents stole all of his candy. Truly, the greatest crime that they have ever committed. Back with Hanto, he had tailed the dance instructor, who as it turned out, was trying to find the kidnapper himself, and the reason for his bulge was because he needed to keep his stomach warm, as he had a very sensitive tummy. Fart jokes aside, it did make sense even though the dude wasn't doing himself any favors.
なんでそんな格好で生徒の後ろをうちの生徒がこの付近で行方不明になってる
So I decided to look exactly like the guy in the Stranger Danger poster. Though, as it turned out, the grand newt that even the twins had been keeping track of just so happened to strike then and there as a kid was eating one of the treats from the instructor. Hanto managed to save the kid and engage the monster in an okayish fight. I mean, I think the confined space of the tunnel made it a little hard to film, but Hanto's creative, dirty fighting kinda made up for it. Still, the monster managed to escape, but his victim had left behind an important clue they could tie back to a line they had said earlier about enjoying his treats, aka a mandolin. At the same time, Shoma had followed the agent into a warehouse where a pretty obvious trap was waiting. They attacked him with Nivel's inventions, which turned out to be turrets with heat lasers. Thus, even though Shoma smartly started off with his gunner form rather than his base form as usual, since it was made of chocolate, it was easily melted down, along with his usually tanky full of Malo form, as both treats had low tolerances for heat. Thus, as we said, he conveniently ended up turning to his newest little buddy. Is that form meant to fight the Hulk or feed him? But yeah, this is the Gurakan form, and in spite of, or maybe because of, the gaudy colors, I actually really like this thing. I mean, for one thing, the higher amounts of chromas in his colors were justified as they were coming from an artificially colored candy, plus it makes him stand out a lot more. It also gave a good sense of how freaking dense this form was thanks to all of its thickness. Though, most importantly, I like the fact that this suit was actually there for most of the battle, at least. We'll talk more about it during the closing thoughts, but as for the actual best part of this battle, well, that came when Shoma turned his motorcycle into its four-wheeler form, and then turned that into a freaking machine gun.
But that was awesome!
I especially love how we got to see how this thing worked, as not only did the Gochizos had to hilariously and very cutely blow on it to cool it down, but inside of this big gun was a whole Willy Wonka-esque setup where they produced its bullets. That is just so damn clever that I love this big silly power armor form. And with it, he of course wiped the floor with the agent and the twins' guns, forcing them to retreat. Back with Hanto, he tried to go back to the bakery of the Grand Newt, but only found an empty lot.
店が丸ごと消えるそんなことあんのか
Though he did seem to find some sort of clue that we'll learn more about next week, as the episode ended on another cliffhanger, as Kiai finally decided to partake in a treat that she had felt she had earned, only to make herself look like a good ingredient for some dark treats. Anyway, this is a good character building episode for Hanto with some great lessons. In spite of justifiably being focused on the Grand Newts, I actually like that Hanto took a little time to consult a kid in need. It was both touching and will make the inevitable rescue next week all the more gripping. And of course, the debut of the Gurakan form was just awesome, made even better by the simple fact that it was actually there. One thing I really can't stand about power armor forms in this series is the fact that many of them have to be CGI due to impractical designs and or the need to make them insanely agile for such clunky looking armors. The latter point especially annoys me because sometimes I think it's just cooler to appreciate these things as mighty glaciers that focus on just defense and attack above all else, which Gurakan portrayed perfectly by being an actual suit that could give the impression that it was big and tanky. As a result, it looked great, and even came with a really creative weapon with more to come next week. Meanwhile, Hanto participated in a pretty funny and decent mystery around the missing children. Yeah, I make fun of the red herring dude, but it was executed well enough, it's just that I'm overly used to some of these twists. Also, could have gone without the fart jokes, but what are you gonna do? Meanwhile, his talk with Kiari was really damn wholesome, with a good lesson about finding the confidence in yourself to pursue a dream. It's also worth knowing that this was the first episode not to be written by the head writer of the show, Junko Komura, but rather a secondary writer, Kaori Kaneko, who she has worked with a lot on shows like Healing Good and Loopot. Thus, this and the next episode are going to be a little less focused on the main plot, but if we're developing the main characters, then it's no big deal, because overall, this is a solid episode for Hanto with an awesome debut of a new form. While I usually prefer chocolate for Halloween, this show did make me want to have some of the harder stuff. Thank you for watching, and I won't say Happy Halloween just yet, as we might try to release something on the actual day. I won't say what it is just yet, as I kind of want to keep it a surprise, but if you've been watching some of my other stuff, then you might have a good idea of what it's going to be. Look forward to it. Until then, though, fair for now, my friends, and... I finally made it to the center. Kind of not worth it.